91.3 FM CJTR, Regina Community Radio. Tuned into the community. Our programming is brought to you by community-minded organizations like SGEU and by listeners like you.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Good morning. This is Kathy for Get Chatty with Kathy, and I want to thank you for joining us today. It's a beautiful day here in Regina, and I am just so happy to have you here with us. Today we have on the show Angela Tremka, who works at Salthaven West. She is able to just provide us with some information about what Salthaven does here in Regina and within Saskatchewan, as some of us, have maybe heard a little bit about it on the news lately, but we're not familiar with what actually is this community center for animals that you've created. So if you don't mind just kind of explaining to us who you are and, what Salthaven's all about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on your show today, Kathy. I'm really excited to talk about Salthaven West. We're a wildlife rehabilitation and education center in Regina, Saskatchewan. We are a nonprofit and mainly volunteer operated, and we provide care to sick, injured, displaced, and orphaned wildlife across southern Saskatchewan. That includes wild birds, mammals, reptiles, and amphibians. And over the past year, we admitted 1,500 wildlife patients from over 90 cities, towns, villages, all across southern Saskatchewan.
Whoa.
In need of help. Yeah.
And is this purely for, nonprofit? Like, you do this, who's paying for taking care of these animals?
We are mainly funded by community donations.
Wow.
So it's the support of the community that helps us be able to do the work that we're able to do.
So without them, these poor 1,500 animals wouldn't have had a hope. So what kind of animals? I know you just kind of went through a long list. What's a typical day like at Salthaven? What would you guys see in a day?
Well, every single day is very unique. We never know what patients we're going to get in our care. During the spring, summer, and fall is our busiest. However, our winters are starting to pick up as well. So we continue to see a rise in injured wildlife in need of rehabilitation due to a lot of human-caused challenges. So that can be like window collisions, cat attacks, vehicle collisions, habitat destruction, and litter. And we can see anything from an American white pelican or bald eagle all the way down to a hummingbird, or we get lots of different squirrels, ground squirrels, tree squirrels, frogs, turtles, everything in between.
Wow. And you're just helping them because they're injured, I'm assuming, or is it just because they're displaced?
A bit of both. So this past winter, we had a lot of salamanders in our care because they were displaced. So their hibernation was interrupted due to some human development. So we were wanting to build more buildings, and in order to do that, we have to dig into the ground. And then it was found that there were all of these salamanders that needed to be overwintered with us, and then in the spring, we were able to release them back into their wild environment. But we do get mainly injuries. And so, for example, during migration season, which is in the fall, so this is a great time for migration. We're seeing a lot of species going through Saskatchewan. Sometimes they hit the window, and birds don't actually see glass. They think that they can fly right through that, and so they'll hit the window at very high speeds, and that will lead to a concussion, lots of brain swelling, and we need those wild birds into our care so that we can provide them with the proper medications to reduce that brain swelling and get them back healthy again so that they can continue their migration.
Wow, that's such a good thing that you guys are there to do that. So what is your facility like? I understand that you guys are fundraising to improve this facility. So where are you guys now?
So we are operating out of a 600 square foot clinic in a basement of a residential house. The clinic that we are currently working out of, we've been working out of for about 10 years now. And we started by admitting maybe a few hundred patients every year. And now we're in the thousands, and we can no longer manage the number of patients that are in need of treatment all across southern Saskatchewan in this tiny facility.
I can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So, what can people do to help to get that facility upgraded? What are some of the avenues you guys are looking at?
So you can check out our website for ways to donate. Follow us on social media. We've got lots of different avenues that you can donate. One of the things that everybody can do, which is really easy, is Sarcan's Drop and Go. So all of the proceeds from your recyclables can go directly to Salthaven West by using the code Salthaven West.
Perfect. And then those donations go straight there for their cans. Money that we're not even expecting half the time.
Exactly.
I like that idea a lot. So I hear that, this is a wonderful place. Thank goodness we have you guys to take care of, these hurt animals, Angela. But what got you into that? Like, why do this? What drives you?
Well, I didn't always work with wildlife, though my heart has always been with the birds. I wanted to take an extra step in my relationship with nature, from strictly enjoying it in my personal time to actively participating and helping through volunteering and citizen science projects. So I started out with local bird counts and Project Feeder Watch, which are awesome citizen science projects. And then that led me to volunteering. I started volunteering in a prep lab for wildlife, and it snowballed from there. I met so many amazing people that inspired me. I learned about wildlife rehabilitation and bird banding, and it was through these experiences where I started understanding the intricacies of nature, how everything connects, and how people's everyday actions impact our wildlife and our environment. It was really an awakening, and it was at that moment where I took a look at my life and I decided that I needed to take a leap to dedicate my time fully to wildlife.
Thank you so much for doing that. But why? Was it just, I feel as though that is a huge leap. And why are animals so important? You're saying that they're affected every day. Can you go into that? Like, I imagine driving, the impact of, social activities and global warming and all these things affect the animals, that we have. What is the consequences of this? I imagine you look at this sort of stuff much more frequently than the average person.
Absolutely. Well, I really want to work towards a future where more communities understand, respect, and value wildlife. We are all responsible for the well-being of our wildlife, and I think that more and more people are starting to feel that connection to nature and are really understanding the importance that wildlife plays in our ecosystem. A favorite quote of mine is, if you take care of the birds, you take care of most of the big problems in the world. So we cannot survive without healthy ecosystems, and wildlife, especially birds, play a vital role in maintaining the balance of the ecosystems. They pollinate plants, they disperse seeds, they control pests, they transform landscapes, they're a source of food. And when these wildlife populations decline, it can have a ripple effect throughout the entire ecosystem, leading to a decline in biodiversity and the loss of many important ecosystem services. As climate change and urban development continues, the role of wildlife rehabilitation centers continues to expand and evolve to try to meet these growing conservation needs. And I really do think that it's by working together we can all be stewards of local biodiversity and protect and sustain our environment for all living things.
what could somebody like me at home in Regina do to help the wildlife that we have here? Is there any tips you have?
Absolutely. I think just being more aware of what wildlife is in our neighborhoods, just simply taking a moment every day. I know we're so busy, but just taking a moment to be outside and to stop and look and listen, and all of a sudden the world around you starts to become alive, and that's when we start noticing some things. So that's when we start to notice that that thunk on our window being a window strike, and there's something that we can all do to stop window strikes from happening. There's products such as like feather friendly window tape, and it's these small dots that you place on your window. They're every 2 inches apart. They're really easy to install. They last 10 years on your window, and they're incredibly effective and affordable. That's something that I wish we could have on everybody's picture windows, those problem windows, to stop those bird collisions, because window collisions account for the deaths of over 1 billion birds in North America every single year.
Wow. Well, I'm just thinking right now of like Tower 1 and Tower 2 here in Regina. Aren't they made out of glass? Like it's a reflection of the sky.
Yes.
I could not imagine how many birds are hitting that every day.
Well, we do with Nature Regina, and including a lot of groups like Bird Friendly Regina, Nature Saskatchewan. There's 2 weeks during the year where we go out every morning during migration, so in the spring and in the fall, just for 1 week, between 7 and 8 in the morning, and we pick up all of the birds that we find at the bottom of all of these towers in downtown Regina.
Really? I had no idea that was happening.
That helps give us an idea of what every day is like for birds in these areas. And another part of it, too, it's not just the glass, but it can be the lights at night. So light pollution is a huge factor for getting birds off track during their migration, because they're flying at night when it's calm, and they're using the stars to help guide them. And all of a sudden they see these incredibly bright city centers, and they're attracted to that bright light. And then they're in the middle of these downtown areas, and they're very confused, and then they'll hit the glass.
Terrible. So
it's not totally even a daytime problem. It's a nighttime problem as well.
Wow. So aside from, big towers and stuff like that, and putting glass dots, on glass, what about when we're like in our cars? I know like a lot of animals get hurt on the roads. What can we do there?
So what I'm picturing here is all of the raptors that you see on posts as you're driving down the highways, and you're eating your apple as a snack, and you're throwing that apple core outside of the window because you're like, well, it's biodegradable, it's fine, and something will eat it. Well, what ends up happening is that attracts different rodents to the roads. So down the busy highways, now you're attracting rodents, and your raptors, your owls, your hawks, they are zoning in on those rodents, and they will go and they won't look to see if a car's coming. They're going to go after that rodent, and that's when your car strikes the raptor. So really being mindful that our litter, our apple cores, are actually having a large effect on many wildlife species.
I never even thought of that, and you're so right.
Yeah. There's so many different things that we see every day. Another really big one is sticky traps outside, or even mouse traps outside. They're indiscriminate traps that might catch more than what you were anticipating. So just because it says it's a mouse trap doesn't mean that it won't catch a bird.
You're right.
And that happens a lot. And so we get all of these different cases where different animals were caught, salamanders, frogs, bats.
With the cities growing and expanding, and Regina is no exception to that, as you can see in both the sides of the Regina, I remember coyotes were an issue. Because we're invading their space, obviously, and we're taking up more land than where they used to roam. Is that still an issue here in Regina?
Well, they are around, and sometimes they do travel through Regina, and or travel through all cities and towns. It's really common at different times of the year go through our cities. And I think we need to not be so nervous about having them go through our cities and think of it more as a natural thing that happens, and just make sure that we are taking precautions like keeping our dogs on leashes when they're supposed to be on leashes, and really understanding that coyotes aren't going to be attacking people, but we just need to make sure that we're not feeding wildlife or leaving food and litter around that might be attracting some of this wildlife into some of our areas of our cities where we're not wanting that wildlife to be.
Makes sense. Yeah. So don't leave food out and then they won't come. Do we still have people leaving peanuts, though? I swear I got a couple neighbors that do that. And I was told years ago that was not a good thing anymore.
Yes, a lot of folks are leaving peanuts out for squirrels and other birds. I think the biggest thing is people are still feeding bread to birds, like to our waterfowl.
Oh.
And that one, so there's signs up around some of the parks, but I know that this is still a huge issue, and it leads to developmental issues called angel wing syndrome. So essentially when birds, we'll take a Canada goose as an example. When a gosling is being fed bread or donuts or chips or popcorn, which I see in the parks all the time, they're getting all of these empty calories without the nutrition that they need in order to grow healthy muscles and bones. And so what ends up happening is when their wings are developing, they start to actually twist unnaturally outwards. And they're unable to fly when their wings twist like that. And if we can get those cases into our clinic early enough, we can actually reverse that. But we can't always reverse it, especially with adult species that have been fed bread for many, many months or even years, and they're unable to fly.
So what's the role then that we can do there? Do we provide some place for them to be, or are they out of luck?
In those cases, they're out of luck. There's nothing that we can do, and there's nowhere that they can go. So I think the best thing that we can do is when we're wanting to have those connections with nature out in the park, first and foremost, just watch what they're actually eating and watch how they eat and just enjoy that experience. If we feel that we want to feed our wildlife something, just to get our children involved, feeding things like lettuce cut up, or grass, or peas, or earthworms, or oats, something that's more natural for their diet.
That's so important. Smart. Just bring a head of lettuce.
Yes.
Why not? That's just as easy.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing, too, that's really important is Google does not always have the right answers. So if you come across something and you're unsure about it, that's when you can give Salthaven West a call, and we will help you through that scenario. So this is especially important when you come across wildlife that you think might be injured. It might be injured, but it might not be injured. So it's best if you call before you intervene, because there are cases where, for example, in the spring and summertime, we can sometimes see baby bunnies that are outside and they're by themselves, and it looks like they are alone. And then we think, oh, they're probably hungry and scared. But when in reality, parent jackrabbits, so the mom only feeds the babies twice a day, bright and early when the sun is just rising and we're still in bed. And then late at night after we've already gone to bed, that's when she calls for her babies. They come and she feeds them. And the reason why she only spends so little time with them is because she actually smells like a rabbit. She smells like food to predators. And those babies haven't developed that scent yet. So the best thing she can do for them is leave them out by themselves, sporadically around, to look like little rocks.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So we get a lot of cases like that too, where folks phone and say, hey, I picked up this baby rabbit and I fed it milk or something that is inappropriate for their digestive systems, or I kept it for 24 hours and it's already missed a couple feedings, and then those cases we have to take in, and we call those accidental kidnappings, because the wildlife wasn't actually in danger, it wasn't orphaned, it wasn't injured, but it's too late for them to go back to mom.
Right. So whenever you see any type of animal, before you do anything, it's best to talk to somebody like Salthaven West that will provide us with better, insight into what we really should do.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And there are cases too where, like, if you find a bird on the ground, it doesn't mean that bird, or maybe it looks like it's a young bird. There are cases where if their bird is not feathered yet, that's called a nestling. And you can actually put that nestling back up into the nest and the parents will come back and continue to feed it. Or there's a case where you might find a fledgling on the ground, which is a young bird, but they're fully feathered. And they spend about 10 days on the ground trying to learn how to fly before they can fly away. So there are all these different cases and scenarios where we don't expect you to have the answer to that, and Google might not have the accurate information for your location. So the best thing to do is to phone us, follow us on social media, where we're giving all of this information out. We want to make sure that our communities know the best ways to interact with our wildlife, and yeah, just give us a call if you ever have any questions.
Perfect. So aside from helping these hurt animals, I understand that you also like to help with bird banding. And to tell you the truth, I'm not quite familiar with why we would ban birds and what's the purpose of it and all that sort of stuff. So do you mind taking us through the bird banding?
Absolutely. So I am a bird banding assistant at the Last Mountain Bird Observatory. That is located at the north end of Last Mountain Lake. And we operate 13 mist nets to catch migrating songbirds. So what we do is we band birds with a small aluminum band that we attach to the bird's leg, and it has a unique 9-digit number. And every bird that we band, we collect data such as their species identification, we get their size, so we weigh them, we measure their wing length, we measure their fat content, and then we look for breeding characteristics and characteristics to determine their age and their sex. And once we've gathered all of this data, they are set free with their tiny new anklets. And the reason why we collect this data and we band birds is because it's really important information for learning about the environments in which these birds live, their migration, their lifespan, their reproductive success, and their population demographics. So it helps us monitor the number and the species of migrating songbirds, and it helps us understand their population trends overall and the intricacies of migration. So right now, we're noticing that birds are migrating a little bit earlier than in other years. So it's really interesting to collect this data over time to understand what the environment is looking like.
So trends. So we're seeing an earlier migration this year. When you look at it maybe in a 10-year, step back 20 years, what do you see with the songbirds?
Well, there's so many different things happening right now. We're noticing that a lot of songbird populations numbers are in serious decline, and that's due to a loss of breeding and wintering habitats. So this information is really important because it provides us with these insights into the ecosystem health and the longevity of birds. And so this is something too that Salthaven West thought was really important. So we're now able to band songbird patients that are admitted for care and scheduled for release. And this helps us see valuable information on our rehabilitation practices working? Are we getting birds back that we've already seen before, or are we seeing that 9 years later this bird was found with its banned, and it looks like it lived a very healthy life. So it helps us gather all of this information that we can use for new rehabilitation strategies and to learn what's working and what's not working.
Interesting. I think that looking at data is extremely important when it comes to our birds, and it's sad that these numbers are declining. Do you see any trends that are, optimistic here in the Queen City?
Well, something that's really cool that we've noticed is, so in earlier in the spring, for example, at the Last Mountain Bird Observatory, we caught a yellow warbler that had a very old band on its leg. And when we looked up that number, we found that bird was banded in 2014.
Oh, wow. You got 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that bird is at least 9 years old, which is incredibly neat. And so we are seeing cases like that still. And I think the more we can work together in doing little things in our everyday life to help these birds navigate through the worlds that we're building very quickly, the better off everybody is.
Definitely. I have to thank you for your passion. Not a lot of people are willing to focus their life on something that, they think could be valuable for society. And what you're doing is definitely helping all of us. And it's a very interesting lens that you carry.
Well, it helps because I get to spend every single day working with such dedicated wildlife rehabilitators, biologists, and ornithologists and nature enthusiasts, all with incredible dedication, enthusiasm, and passion for wildlife conservation. So they really make it easy.
Well, I think you're with like-minded people. That is great. And can you just remind all of us how we can just help Salthaven West and to help them get to that goal of building a really sustainable place for these animals to go to and be safe and rehabilitate?
Absolutely. So we are completely out of space in our small 600 square foot facility, and an upgraded clinic is imperative for the well-being of our local wildlife. We're noticing every year more and more wildlife in need of rehabilitation, and we want to be able to offer the best possible care for all of the wildlife that comes through our clinic for the future. So we're mainly funded by community donations, and every single dollar helps us out so much. It helps our wildlife patients and makes a huge difference in the lives of our wildlife. And so we're in need of a larger clinic, and donating through our website. You can donate, and you could also donate your bottles and cans to the Drop and Go using the code Salthaven West. That all helps us out so much.
Definitely. Tell us your website.
So our website is salthaven.org, and /Salthaven West will show you the Saskatchewan organization.
Wonderful. So people out there, if you're listening, us as a community really need to take care of our environment around us, and this is in a very impactful way to help with your dollars. So people out there, please donate. I definitely think that the surrounding areas and the environment that we take over, we need to be responsible for that. So I thank you, Angela, for coming and doing what you do.
Well, thank you so much for having me chat about this